Chop it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. I just appreciate everybody watching. Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Dive podcast, provided to you by 214 Media. I'm your host, Mual Jamal Forrest. And joining me right now, right out the gate, we starting out with the Giants preview with the good man, Nick Pilato. Nick covers the Giants for SB Nation's Big Blue View, is the host of the Big Blue View podcast, and also does the Big Blue Banter podcast for Blue Wire Pods. Nick, appreciate you joining me. Welcome back to Trap or Dive podcast, man. How you doing tonight?
Jamal, man, I got to tell you, that was one of the coolest, most in-depth videos I have ever seen to open one of these things. I am so jealous of that, man. I don't know if you put that together, but whoever did, they deserve a freaking raise.
Shout out to Tay. Shout out to Todd, and shout out to my boy Montez. You know, it took a little effort, it took a little effort from a lot of people. All I had was the vision and got the right people to get it done, man. So yeah. I got a lot of confidence for that, man. The music is fire. That's my boy. He actually is an artist in real life. So I just had him do like a little hook and something like that. We got it going. Yeah. Okay. So y'all know why we're here. I see you in the comments right now. See money, win or go home. That is the case for all of us, Giants and Washington. Nick, let's go ahead and get things started with just the journey to this point. It's the same record for both teams, 7-5-1. Washington is 6-1-1 in their last 7. After their 1-4 start, and then for the Giants, 2-4-1 in their last 7 after a 5-1 start. For the Giants and their story, I always see them as competitors, week in, week out. They always compete. Just been on the short end of short end of the stick in terms of the last 7 games. What's been the story behind this 2022 Giants, in your opinion, led by the new head coach and Brian Daboll?
Yeah, so Brian Daboll, I feel like Giant fans are still very optimistic about the direction of this team under Joe Schoen, who is the new general manager. It's a complete overhaul from Dave Gettleman, who was in the previous regime, and Joe Judge. But no one expected the Giants to compete. This was supposed to be the rebuild year, the evaluation year of Daniel Jones, of Saquon Barkley, who remain to be free agents right now, which is a whole nother topic for maybe another day. But the Giants come in and they open up their season 6-1. They go for 2 in week 1, and they defeat the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. And that was a huge deal. It takes a lot of stones to go for 2 in those types of situations at the end of a game. And it worked out for the New York Giants. And the Giants were beating teams that presumably were pretty solid football teams, right? The Packers, who aren't that great, as we found out. The Baltimore Ravens, who might not be as good as we originally thought either. But they were competitive and they were well coached. And I still think they are, but now they are pretty injured on both sides of the football. Their effectiveness running the football has declined significantly, which has definitely affected the overall ability of the play action passing attack. So I think before the bye week, Daniel Jones was, I think, the number 1 ranked quarterback per EPA on play action passes. Now he's about middle of the pack. I think he's about 18th. And I think that's one of the primary identities of this offense. There's not a lot of huge playmakers besides Saquon Barkley, who I don't really believe is right at the moment. So the Giants have kind of been getting really creative, using Daniel Jones' athletic ability, rolling him out, whatnot, things of that nature. And it worked up until a point. Seattle, game before the bye week, Seattle was just dialed into what the New York Giants wanted to do. Every time Daniel Jones tried to roll out, Bruce Irvin was right in his face. And I feel like a lot of teams have adopted what Seattle did, and the Giants haven't really found a way to establish any sort of consistent offense. We saw it against Washington in the second half. The Giants went 3 and out. 3 drives in the second half, and then a 4 and out. And John Feliciano took that really stupid penalty, the flexing. and the Giants ended up tying that football game, which really felt like a loss on, I think, probably both sides.
Let me ask you a question. Yes, I'm glad you brought that part up. Let me ask you a quick question. A side note, was that penalty where he was flexing, did you all talk about that after the game? Like, did it look like he was flexing to his teammate who just happened to be behind Commanders players, and they called the flag thinking he was taunting towards like Commanders players?
Yes. So I think he was flexing at Darius Slayton, but regardless of the fact, it's just stupid. There's no reason to put yourself into that situation so it can be perceived that he's doing it on Washington's players. I don't think that's what he was doing, but I just think it's a really dumb thing to do for a veteran guy like John Feliciano.
What is so as you mentioned, like both teams felt the type of way, probably the same type of feeling, but what surprised you, I guess, is the way I would say from the game, if we would have put a different spin on it. Like for example, like Washington, I mean, for several reasons, it's not like a plain black and white comment, but for several reasons had issues attacking the Giants secondary, who had their guys injured in terms of Adoree, and obviously the main guy was Fabian Moreau, who used to play here in Washington, but like Washington wasn't able to attack the secondary like some people anticipated, given the matchups, given that the Giants love to play man coverage despite who's out there, and the fact that Washington's receiving core is perceivably better in terms of a versus situation. So, like, what kind of surprised you from a Giants perspective from that game, and how, whether it's for good or for bad, just what kind of surprised you from that matchup?
I think it was, I don't know if it surprised me, because I want to get your opinion on Taylor Heineke in a second, but Taylor Heineke left some throws out there. There were times when the Giants were just beat. Logan Thomas was wide open for a touchdown, and he just airmailed it. There was times where Terry McLaurin would win on these inside dig routes over the middle of the field. And I feel like Taylor Heineke, and I respect the kid, but I do not feel like he is all that accurate. I don't really believe too much in his overall arm talent, but he just seems to have that sort of unquantifiable it factor about him. So the Giants came out and they ran a lot of man coverage, as they tend to do. They didn't blitz as much as they have blitzed other teams. I think they blitzed north of 38%, which is a lot comparatively to other teams, but the Giants blitzed like 51% of opponents' dropbacks. So it wasn't necessarily like the Giants were necessarily blitzing, but they were still getting pressure because Azeez Ojulari was back healthy, and Kayvon Thibodeau's coming into his own. Dexter Lawrence is an absolute beast. I think guys like Nick McLeod and some of these younger players in the secondary really just held their own until that drive where Curtis Samuel caught the 4th and 4, which was an amazing play by Taylor Heineke, a great throw by Taylor Heineke as well. But other than that drive, and then you had the missed tackle by Fabian Moreau that led to the touchdown for Terry McLaurin, I felt like this young, beat up secondary performed pretty solidly against what I would consider a very talented 11 personnel package.
Yeah, it's interesting. And in terms of Taylor, I think a lot of us, and it's so weird. I'll put it this way. It's so weird because we get into these arguments from a Commanders community, fan base, whether it's reporters, people who cover the team, national, or just within the fan base altogether. We get into these arguments about Taylor Heineke and who he is. But then secondly, we get into these arguments about, Sam Howell needs to be playing, or Carson Wentz needs to come back in because Taylor Heineke isn't really getting the job done. To what you're seeing, Nick, from the outside looking in, you're not wrong. Like, he does this a lot of times throughout the course of his games. Now, granted, he has stretches, but I think the stretches that you're talking about are spot on again. Like, in order for a Heineke to really be on, it has to be crunch time, 2 minutes left, 4 minutes left in the game, something like that, 4-minute situation. And we're going to go ahead and put the ball in Taylor Heineke's hands, because at this point we ain't got no choice. And for him, like, he lives and relishes in those moments, and that's where you see his best football. But outside of that, like, he is one of the more spotty quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of his accuracy. Like, I think that he believes, like, he's really good at understanding, like, the playbook. The playbook isn't an issue with him, but sometimes what he's saying on the field, it gets him in trouble, whether it's from sailing footballs or whether it's really from staring down Terry McLaurin. And despite what the coverage tells him where he needs to go with the football. And then the biggest thing lately has been about, like, his scrambling ability. But in terms of, like, a passing side and who he is as a passer, yeah, you're not off at all. Like, you're spot on in kind of understanding who he is as a player. You rarely see a full complete game from the quarterback. And that's really been the issue from every single quarterback that Washington's had for a long period of time.
Yeah,
Really
outside
since Kirk Cousins, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Outside looking in, to me, what Scott Turner wants to do is have Taylor Heineke throw the football 26, 27 times a game. You guys establish the run with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson and kind of get things going in that manner. Now, watching the Giants defense and how you guys just consistently ran counter against, that's what you do to defeat the Giants defense. They can't defend the counter because they don't have the linebackers with the instincts to position themselves to contain defenders. And every time you see 51 out there, Azeez Ojulari, as much as I respect Azeez Ojulari for his ability to rush the passer, he's still a work in progress as a run defender. I think you guys are going to come out with a similar approach, and I can get your opinion on this as well, on just trying to run to the outside and get, as I call it, 5 yards every time Brian Robinson touches the ball. That guy's a 5-yard machine, it seems like. He's just always getting at least 5 yards. That kid, I loved him in college, man, and I think you guys got a player. He might not be the flashiest or the sexiest, but I really have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, he's getting comfortable. And I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, we know what he went through like right before the season started with Brian Robinson, and like it took him some time. Like it was a point where, matter of fact, AJ on the show, and I can say it because he said it on the show, but AJ just really didn't understand why Robinson was back on the field at one point just yet. But I really think it was just a matter of getting his legs under him and really feeling like what type of comfortability is Brian Robinson in terms of like his feel for the pro game, his feel for taking on contact, his feel for understanding like the block schemes that Washington was running in. For what you're saying, the counters, the trap, like they ran trap, I think, at the end, like the Curtis Samuel run, the big run at the end of the game in overtime. That was the first time that they really ran it. But the point is, like the power, the counter, all those things have been something that they've been using ever since they realized the interior offensive line is a little limited. And I think you saw that more in particular in the pass game. And that's kind of what really hurt them. Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams had their way in terms of the interior. Obviously, we know about Azeez. And who was the other guy that was giving them problems? Kayvon. I don't know how I forgot Kayvon's name for a second. But like, and obviously that was a byproduct of also Martindale being able to actually, scheme some pressures up, which was good. But point being, back to the run game, yeah, I really like Brian Robinson, and I really like the fact that Scott Turner has found a way to stick to the ground game. It may not be his first choice. He may be the coordinator who wants to throw it 35 times a game. And like, who knows? But like the formula over the past 3 years under Rivera and Turner has always been a successful one if they're able to establish that 45-55 run pass ratio or something where it's so close and not necessarily heavily favored to the pass game, because this has never really been a strength here in Washington, despite the weapons that they've been trying to get on the perimeter.
And that's a product of the quarterback position, you believe?
Yeah. So like Carson, obviously, as we know, Carson has a strong arm. In terms of this year specifically, I'm speaking of everybody. But Carson this year, they had a vision, they had an idea. And like I will say this too, by the way, Nick, I don't think now for this week, I think it has to go really bad for Carson to see the field if he ends up being the backup to Taylor. But I don't think that his season is over just yet if Taylor continues to play the way that you even noticed in your observations. However, Carson is the guy that they envision can really press defenses and threaten defenses the way that Turner wants to get it done. But like at the same time, it's really, and I think this is going to be like my biggest key for the game and actually for our last 4 stretch, given who we play: San Francisco, Dallas, and then obviously Myles Garrett in Cleveland. Like when you realize what you did to your offensive line in the offseason by not really paying attention to that interior and not really trying to get some help, some solid help, and not, go to some retreads that you knew in Carolina, that are clearly limited in today's game. It's not, but so much you can really do downfield because you don't have the pass protection to get it done. So like it's a lot of variant factors, and I think you were able to see that in that first game, the way that Norwell had his troubles, and obviously the way that Cornelius Lucas, who has been in place for Sam Cosmi on the right side, he's had his troubles against Ojulari and Kayvon.
Yeah, that third and long sack by Dexter Lawrence that knocked y'all out of playoff or knocked you playoff out of field goal range
Yeah.
was devastating towards the end of the game.
Yeah. Dexter had himself a day.
He's
Split a
good,
couple
man.
double teams. Had several pressures. One of the ones that you're talking about where Taylor had a bad throw. He had Jahan Dotson on the over or crosser, probably like 20 yards downfield, and Dexter Lawrence creates some interior pressure, and he's able to escape like the edge pressure, but then runs into Dexter on a throw and just overthrows a wide open Jahan Dotson for like 30 something yards, and probably a bigger day at that. Who do we have in here? Okay, all right, bet. So AJ just joined. AJ's names are hilarious. I want to get this question in, and I'll get the floor to AJ right quick because I have to grab something. But we have a question from Al too. He says he wants to know about what you think about Dayball going ultra conservative in the overtime last game. We used to that Ron. I think he missed the word. My bad. From here, but we're used to that. I'm tripping. Yeah. We're used to that from Ron here, but how was it as a Giants fan seeing your head coach all of a sudden shrink? Is how he described it. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, he's taken some criticism for that. I would say I think the more conservative approach that we're seeing from the New York Giants right now is due, similar to what Jamal was saying, the interior offensive line is a real issue. And there are times when the Giants have tried to dial up deep shots, and trying to run under center play action has been such an issue for this team because Mark Lewinsky, somebody that the Giants signed in free agency, has really struggled. And Evan Neal, who first game back was against Washington, I felt like he had a really good game, but then against Philadelphia, he gave up 2 sacks and I think like 8 pressures. So he's another player that's been struggling. So I think the Giants have just not been able to do what they want to do from an offensive philosophical perspective in terms of attacking the intermediate and deep portions of the field consistently because protection issues. And it's a whole conversation too. Like everyone's like, why isn't Saquon Barkley being used as a receiver more? It's because the Giants call a lot of 6, sometimes 7-man protection. Like the Giants are out there in 12 and 13 personnel more than I think a lot of people would like. Now they're 11 personnel, I think around like 60% of the time, but when they're in winning scripts, man, they just want to run the football and get the hell out of there. Like everything is built around Saquon Barkley. But right now, as I said at the top of the show, Saquon Barkley has been ineffective because the offensive line can't block, and that's going to affect the play action passing attack. And what are you going to do from there? I feel like Mike Kafka, Giants offensive coordinator, discovered something that he didn't really use against Washington until overtime, and that was just quick game passing concepts. He used slant flat twice to Isaiah Hodgins.
The slant flat 8. Both every time they just ran it down the field, and we couldn't stop it till like the last time.
Exactly, and I think we're going to see more of that. I think that's something that the Giants some meat the Giants left on the bone was just quick game passing concepts to the outside. Because Darius Slayton also had one to open overtime for like 11 yards on what should have been the game-winning drive. Possibly if Feliciano doesn't flex, that was like an 11-yard gain off just a quick, simple curl. I think they have to simplify things and just kind of attack, especially because you guys run so much quarters. You guys are in cover 4 quarters like all the time. Attack that space. Just attack that space. And I think Kafka kind of saw that towards the 4th quarter, and I'm hoping that he kind of calls those types of plays now in this second matchup, this pivotal matchup.
So last week, I think I'll just ask, like, because there's this conspiracy, and I'm not holding too much weight on it, so I'm not going to sit here and act like it's a huge thing. But I'll just say, what are the injuries looking like heading into Sunday? Because some people believe that Giants could have been holding out some players against Philly to get ready for the matchup against the Giants. The Commanders, given that Philly is all the way up there in the playoff picture.
Yes, that is an interesting conspiracy, but I think the only player that really fits into that would be Leonard Williams, right? Okay. And he suffered the injury against Washington, so I don't think he was 100%. He's practicing in a limited capacity now, so it's looking like he more than likely will play. We'll have to wait and see what tomorrow's report on Friday says. But I don't really play into that. Adoree Jackson more than likely is not going to play. Xavier McKinney still has his freaking broken hand. So the injuries, the key injuries that the Giants have, they're probably not going to be back other than Lenny, who only missed the 1 game because he, quote unquote, as he likes to put it, has Tiger's blood.
So for me, and I guess I got a couple more questions for you, Nick. Like I said, I appreciate you joining me. So for me, Washington, biggest thing, like Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, it was just Saquon and Daniel Jones offensively. It was the Saquon show, it was the Daniel Jones show. And the biggest thing that Washington struggled with and has continued to struggle with since Daniel Jones has been here in the division is stopping him from a scrambling standpoint and from a run design and play design standpoint. And he had his way at least in the first half. He had his way often in that first half and really kept drives alive for the Giants. What is that one thing that you're sitting here saying from a Giants perspective has to happen in order for them to get the win against the Washington Commanders Sunday night?
I think they have to get the run game going and the quick passing attack going, get the football out of the hands of Daniel Jones. I just think it's going to be difficult to get the run game going. They tried to run a lot of counter, similar to what Washington was doing against the Giants. But even so, Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen still had their way with splitting narrow creases to get into the backfield and like force like -4-yard losses for the Giants. So that would be one thing. I mean, I know they're going to try their play action bootlegs, play action rollouts, and I appreciate the fact that Daniel Jones is going to use his legs whenever he doesn't love what he sees. Sometimes he might leave some plays on the field when he does that, but it's not putting the ball into harm's way. I would like to see Daniel Jones maybe use all of his arm talent. I think Daniel Jones can make every single throw in the NFL. He doesn't have a Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes type of arm, but he has arm talent. I don't necessarily see him challenge. And this is something I see Taylor Heineke doing, who I don't think nearly has as much arm talent as Daniel Jones. I don't see him challenge the sideline a lot on those like deep 7 routes, those deep corner routes, especially if they're to the field side. I rarely ever see him doing that. So I would like for him to threaten every inch of the field to really make the opposing team respect his arm talent. Because I do think he has it. I just don't know if he has the confidence sometimes to maybe use all of it.
That's a fair observation. And I think is what do you make of Slayton? Because so for me, when I watched, I had to. I mean, you know, you're in the Discord, but I had to watch Marcus Washington while he was there with New York, and as I watched that, I think that, or my observation was, he's only really taking shots downfield to Darius Slayton, and that's really been in. I don't think that's a huge issue, but I'm saying to your point, is there something where he don't trust his arm, he doesn't trust his player or his teammate, excuse me, in certain situations, or is it like a combination of I don't think I can make this throw, but I definitely do not want to try to make this throw with this player out there. I would rather make this throw or try to make this throw with Slayton if he's running this certain route. Like how do you view the combination of those two possible issues?
Yeah, I think in an ideal scenario, they want to take that deep shot to Slayton because he's probably the best in the 50-50 category in terms of receivers with speed. Because Marcus Johnson, they have him out there. He plays like 6 snaps a game.
Yeah.
The Giants will roll out the formation where they have both him and Darius Slayton outside the numbers. And it's like, oh, they're going to run a play action deep shot. And they do. Whenever they think they have the defense in the middle of the field closed look and they can isolate a cornerback in a one-on-one matchup, they'll take that shot. And they did it 3 times against Washington, 2 in consecutive plays. And I thought on the broadcast film, I thought the throw by Daniel Jones was off. And then I saw the all 22 and I was like, maybe if he put a little bit more touch on it, it would have been better. But Darius Slayton just kind of stopped his route. I think Darius Slayton on that play did not realize that the deep third defender stuck with the horizontal cross and that he had all that space to operate from the numbers to the sideline. I feel like if Darius Slayton knew that, he would have ran underneath that ball, caught it, and the Giants might have won that football game. But instead, it ends up going down as a drop. Next play, Daniel Jones tries the same thing. I felt like it was a pretty solid play by the cornerback to ride him off the red line to the sidelines. But I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. I just think the Giants want to put their players in the best position to succeed. And Darius Slayton is that guy. He's that speed guy. And I wish he was a little bit more efficient with his hands because drops have been kind of a big bugaboo for him throughout his entire career.
And literally,
I was going to chime in out. Never mind. We had RG3 make that mistake of the word, what he wanted to say. but Nick, we appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind. I guess I just wanted to jump in real quick before your time ended with us and just state that it looks like Giants are starting to get more familiarized with the wide receiver addition from the Buffalo Bills and Isaiah Hodgins. I expect him to be a key factor for your offense Sunday's game over Darius Slayton. I just feel like that size and his route running ability is something that they're becoming more familiar with. And Daniel Jones, how do you feel about his addition and role in this game coming Sunday?
Yeah, I'll touch on Isaiah Hodgins, then I'll answer Eric's question, which is up on the screen. So Isaiah Hodgins, to me, I don't feel like there are a lot of 6'4", 209-pound wide receivers just sitting around on practice squads who are as fluid as he happens to be. And he's not Julio Jones or in his prime or anything ridiculous like that, but I think he has a place in an 11 personnel package in the National Football League. I don't know if you saw that route that he ran against James Bradbury on the double move, the stutter and go on the 3rd and I think it was 5 or 3rd and 10, whatever it was, where he sold the inside break so damn well that James Bradbury bid on him. Bradbury's a good corner. We know him well here in New York, but Isaiah Hodgins toasted him. For a guy his size, he's kind of fast, I would say. He's not, he's like a 4'6" guy, but I feel like he plays faster than that. But most importantly, and if you want to be a receiver in Brian Daboll's offense, you need to be smart. You need to be able to know how to run routes and where to be based on the coverage that is in front of you. And if you watch a lot of the Giants tape, Isaiah Hodgins, anytime he sees those quarters looks, this is another reason why I want to see him run quick game, and he sees that apex defender expand with the slant flat, he's just going to sit right in that voided zone, catch it, and then just go. And I appreciate that about him. He's tough as nails. He can go over the middle of the field. He can take the big hits on the deep digs. So I'm a fan of what I've seen from Hodgins. I'm going to have a piece on him coming out soon at Big Blue View. If anybody wants to check it out, I think he's somebody that the Giants can re-sign this season, and he can compete for a roster spot next year. Presumably the Giants will add more talent at the wide receiver position. But I think the intelligence of these players is one of the main things that Brian Daboll wants. Smart, tough, and dependable. That's the mantra for the New York Giants. And I think that's one reason why they drafted Wan'Dale Robinson top 50, because he was so damn smart coming out of Kentucky. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL a few weeks ago.
What do you think about Daniel Jones continuing to next year? Now, obviously, Eric, he is on his last year. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so they will have to kind of make a commitment. I get a floor to you in terms of what you think may happen if you are on the side of bringing him back, but I'll get a floor to you in terms of next year.
Yeah, so in terms of next year, I think the Giants should sign him to a 2-year deal, maybe 3, that they can get out of after 1 year. So a really team-friendly type of deal, maybe somewhere around like 25-ish per year, if they are not interested in any of these young quarterbacks coming out of the class. I have said this, and I still maintain it. I don't think Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the future for the New York Giants. I don't think you tie up big money into a player like Daniel Jones. I like Daniel Jones. I think he checks all the type of boxes of like a hard worker, first in, last out. Everybody likes him. Everybody respects him, tough as nails. But he doesn't necessarily have my desired upside that I think I would want in a true franchise quarterback. And I wouldn't want to allocate a bunch of dead money into future years into a quarterback like Daniel Jones. But I think just because of the options the Giants have in front of them, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they decide to bring him back on a team-friendly type of deal that they can get out of if they do end up drafting somebody that they like or acquiring somebody that they think can really execute this Brian Daboll offense maybe at a higher level. Because I think in some ways there are limitations with Daniel Jones, because I think the offensive line definitely, is one reason why it has not really worked fully here. I think he's never really worked with great weapons or an offensive line. But at the end of the day, I think if you want to consistently compete for Super Bowls, I don't know if Daniel Jones is your guy for that.
So last thing, I want to give you the floor, man. Again, Nick, I appreciate you for joining us. Let the people know where they can find you, read from you, and hear from you. And then obviously we got to know who wins the game and why.
Okay, so you guys can find me on Twitter at Nick Falato. That is Falato. You can check out the podcast I do with CBS's Dan Schneier, Big Blue Banter. All my writing is at Big Blue View. I'm also on the Big Blue View podcast network with Ed Valentine. And in terms of the game, Jamal, man, I think, and I don't like this, I'm going to go with Washington. I think Washington wins this game. I think it's going to be gross and ugly, and there's not going to be a ton of offense. I'm going to go with a 24-21 win for Washington, which is more offense than I think I would actually imagine. But
I'm about to say, we ain't scored over 20 in a long time or consistently.
Yeah, he scored 20 against us, but
yeah,
it's I don't know, man. I think the floor might fall out for the Giants a little bit on the back end. Like I said, I like some of these these pieces that they have in the secondary, these young kids, but only as kids, only as developmental depth pieces, not guys who are going to play 50, 60 snaps for you. So that's an issue. And the fact that I just believe that Scott Turner is going to go right back to the well of running counter, I don't think the Giants can fit it. I don't think the Giants do a good job fitting. I think they put so much on Julian Love's shoulders because Xavier McKinney is not there. And you have Nick McLeod and Fabian Moreau going up against Terry McLaurin. I just don't think it's necessarily a recipe for consistent success. So I think Washington wins this football game, but I'm hoping the New York Giants do.
Sounds good, man. Like I said, I appreciate you, Nick, man. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, all that good stuff. And, I guess I'll say good luck to the boys. In blue. I don't know. I don't think that's the right thing to say right now, but I'll say it because you're a good friend. Good luck to the boys in blue, man.
You guys take care. Thanks for having me. All right.
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Peace.
All right. So there goes Nick. Let's go ahead and get the good man Dre in this thing. Dre, appreciate you joining us. How was things with the practice? Everything your boy put up 30 in practice today?
I mean, they just having them boys work on their little skill drills right now because they got a game in a month. So you know what I'm saying, he not doing too much with them yet, man. We just try and get them better every day, you know.
Already. So do you do are you one of those parents that does like the coaching as well on the sideline, or do they sometimes come? I don't know, like in particularly you. But do they come to some of the parents and be like, yo, can you help us out today type of thing? Like, how does that work? Do you do any coaching?
Well, no. I mean, I coach my son on the side. Like when I bring him out there, I let the coaches do their thing. I don't want to overstep the boundaries. Now, if he need me to do something with him, I'll do something with him. But like I do get together with the coach. He a young dude, man. He a real good dude. He just finished starting quarterback for high school. You know what I'm saying? So he just getting out of high school coaching these kids. So I help him out in in the sense trying to give him some of my little expertise and my knowledge from being experienced. But he leans on that, but he's good though. He's been around the game, so he's good. Not trying to step in his way, But I help him out with the kids as I can.
Hey, bro, that's probably a good look, man. Because I'm trying to think. I know, like. I mainly think about like AAU and how sometimes the players, the refs get into it sometimes with the parents on the sidelines, and sometimes the coaches get into it with the parents on the sidelines because they're not getting that playing time. I remember how my dad handled some things, and he handled them well. It was never like he wasn't one of those people, but I would always go to him if there was a problem, and he would just wait until after practice and be like, can you explain, what my son talking about, and everything made so much sense. But yeah, man, I got you, bro. I got you. But it's good to have you in, man. We're gonna talk a little bit Washington and a little bit of New York. It's the rematch, man. I feel like what's it? Debo of next Friday, man. This is the rematch. Where y'all at with this game? Where's y'all head at? I think the main thing for us is two things, and it's really only two. It's really simple for me. It really is Daniel Jones and offensive line. You got to find a way to stop Daniel Jones because they're not going to stop running him. It's still going to be the Saquon if Saquon is able to play and play effectively. It's going to be the Saquon and Daniel Jones show on the defensive side of football for Washington, and then offensively, if you can't stop that interior, if you can't stop that defensive line from taking over or creating havoc, specifically through your protection scheme and just blocking and winning those matchups against Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, you're gonna have problems. Those are my two main things: Daniel Jones and offensive line.
Absolutely. But for me, first and foremost, I feel great about this game for one reason. I mean, I already kind of felt good about it, but Vegas likes us this week. Did you see the line? It's 4.5. Like we're favored by 4.5 this week, which shocked me because I mean, typically, you know what I'm saying? Like we would be maybe like a 3-point favorite, 2.5 point favorite, but 4.5 suggests that Vegas thinks we might win by a touchdown. So that's what I got to say. That first and foremost, I feel good on that. But overall, I mean, I think slightly we are the better team than the Giants. I mean, not by much. I don't think we're that much of a better team than the Giants, but I just think defensively, we have things going there, and we're getting our best cornerback this week in Ben St. Juste, which is going to be huge. But again, it is still some concern as a Washington fan. I mean, the Vegas stuff aside and all, I mean, we can never feel too confident going into a game, especially in a game where we just came off a tie with the Giants. I mean, we could have lost that damn game to the Giants, man. And as you mentioned, Jamal, I mean, their defensive line gave us fits, man, and that's going to be the issue. That's probably the most concerning thing to me is our interior line against their studs that they have on their D line, because Taylor got sacked 5 times in that game last week. And a lot of it, as you mentioned, it wasn't just like, maybe Taylor running into a sack. It was kind of instant pressure. Like they were getting to Taylor, immediately. It was nowhere to go. So, I mean, they're going to have to get creative in this game. I would love to see in this game maybe Scott Turner start to call a little bit more zone reads or those RPOs where Taylor's actually keeping the ball in those RPOs in this game. I mean, I feel like they didn't call a lot of that stuff in recent weeks or the past few weeks since Taylor has been started, because I don't know if they really fully trusted Sam Howell to have to go in the game if Taylor Heineke gets hurt on like a run play. But now that Carson Wentz is coming out there, he's your primary backup. I feel like they want to go to Carson at some point anyway. So why not take the reins off of Taylor in this game coming up? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you have a guy you're confident in, just in case. I mean, no one's going to hope he gets injured or anything, but just in case he gets injured, Carson is sitting there. So you can't use that excuse that, oh, well, we don't want him to run because we have nobody behind him. You have that now. So give him a little bit more freedom in that. Maybe that helps out, keeps the Giants guys a little bit honest, and they're not going to be getting that instant pressure. But that's one of the things I'm looking for on offense. Let them play a little bit more free, because you need more production on that side of the football. They have to help that defense out.
I want to add into one thing right quick, because my thing is like with the scrambling thing, right? It's not like I literally disagree with him using his legs more. Like I agree with the basis of the point. Like, use your legs more, find a way to use your legs more, whether it's through schematic play call or actually being able to scramble out of the pocket to steal some yards on one play. But he ran over 10 yards twice this year. And he's had 7 games, so he's ran 7 for 17 yards against Minnesota, and then 29 yards against Colts, and those were the 2 games where he had over 10 yards rushing as a scrambler. Here's my, like, has he ever been a person who's getting you like 40, 50 yards a game as a scrambler? I don't think that's ever really been him. I think he's had those games, right? Like, I think about the Giants. I'm assuming not the Giants. The Packers game last year where he ran up the middle for like 30 yards on one rush. And that really helped him out and helped Washington out in that specific instance on that drive. But I don't know. I think that's kind of the picture that we aren't seeing, is like, why doesn't he run it more? Like, matter of fact, I remember listening to a podcast, the one with Logan Paulson, Take Command, and he had mentioned, sometimes it's not easy for every quarterback just to run a zone read. Like, sometimes, because zone reading involves you reading the defense in and really understanding, when to keep the ball or when to hand it off. And he may not be good at it. Like, he may not be good at understanding when to keep the ball or when to, like, how to dictate, who gets the carry on that particular one. And this is all me spitballing, trying to figure out why they aren't like using him more in the run game. But I think there has to be a reason, because it's been too many games that has passed to say, why isn't he using his legs more? I don't think it's Scott Turner's telling him to not run. I think if you're a mobile quarterback, they want, all coordinators and all coaches probably want you to use your legs as a threat. So I don't know. It has to be something else.
I did want to mention, because this was something that I had heard last year when Taylor was starting. His former ODU coach, he got on a few podcasts last year, did his rounds. He said in conversations with Taylor, they had told him they didn't want him to go out there and get hurt. Like, don't, be selective and don't run as much. Yeah, he actually said, Taylor told him that they told him he was too valuable to get hurt, and they wanted him not to play reckless in the ring or using his legs as much. So that's why I kind of assumed that maybe that was a thing this year, because Sam Howell was behind him as the backup quarterback, whereas now you'll have Carson Wentz behind him, and they will tell you that they're very confident in Carson Wentz. So, if Taylor has to go down for any reason, if they got to go to Carson, that's probably what they want to do anyway. So that's the only reason I kind of brought that up, because I know his coach had mentioned it last year, and I don't know if that was said to him this year at all, but it was just my assumption for why he may not use his legs as much.
He's scared. That's why. Because like we mentioned last episode, he knows if he gets hurt, if he misses even just a couple plays, Carson Wentz is back in there, and the same way he gained the job is the same way he could lose it due to injury. And I mean, he's ran read option in college at ODU. He's ran it other times elsewhere, and he's also ran it here. You know, one of the main reasons why the fan base kind of got even hyped off of him was off of a running play. You know, it wasn't a passing play that happened against Tampa that
That
got
was a
people.
scramble though.
It was a scramble, but still, he has the ability to play off script if he really wants to. He just doesn't want to. He's not even showing an effort to even make it a threat. So I think it's just for me, the keys for the game is more so Washington being able to capitalize off of their run game in the passing game. They need to be able to get the ball to their playmakers and Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and Jahad Dotson, and making things more effective in the passing game than the last time when they played Week 13. Because if they can take advantage of those opportunities going against the Giants cornerbacks, it changes the whole entire game. They will be able to put themselves in better position to score, and those guys have an opportunity to score. As we've seen Terry McLaurin and Jahad Dotson take simple, basic routes and turn them into touchdowns. If they can capitalize this go round and not have to have the run game get stuffed to the point where Taylor Heineke is throwing for 41 attempts in a game, that should do them well. The second thing, of course, is being able to stop Daniel Jones from being able to play off script and also on these read options, being disciplined within your gap integrity and also, not crashing too hard on the edge. Montez Sweat suffers
Yeah,
from that a
that's the
lot.
first thing.
James Smith-Williams, kind of the same thing. We don't know if Chase is going to play or not. I expect him to play Sunday in limited
Okay,
snaps.
there you go, Hawk. Because I know Hawk asked about AJ. I mean,
I didn't
Chase. My bad.
I didn't even know somebody asked, but yeah,
Yeah,
I expect them to play Sunday. I think those are two key things. I think they did a good job against Saquon Barkley last go round, but a lot of the game got away from not being able to capitalize in the passing game due to the fact that they were running at a high volume and getting some yardage. But whenever it came time to, play action or whatever, Taylor was just back there either getting sacked, pressured, or strip sack, or either throwing up balls that should have been interceptions that, the guy that he prays to looked out for him. And there's only been so many times that whatever religion he practices is going to be able to do so. But more importantly, definitely need him to, be efficient and smart with the ball. And I think those opportunities really boil down to Scott, help him understand right before these passing plays, like, hey, this is your number one read on this passing play. If it's not there, throw the fucking ball away. Like, don't try to make a play. Because Taylor Heineke idolized Brett Favre, and he definitely has some Brett Favre in him, not in a good way. I was never a fan of Brett Favre growing up because he just do ridiculous things with the ball. Like, sometimes they benefited his team, but there were more times it benefited the other team. And Taylor, kind of just throws up prayers. And yeah, I guess they actually work in his favor as far as like either somebody dropping them or maybe someone making a play on Washington. But I think that's a key thing. I think that the running game will be effective. It's just, okay, you have the effectiveness of the running game. Can you capitalize in the passing game and score some damn touchdowns? Score touchdowns. If you score a
yeah.
touchdown off of that turnover in week 13, we're probably talking about them being, what is it, 8-5?
8-5.
8-5? Yeah, 8 and
Yeah.
5. And in a whole different position as far as feeling like they're already in the playoffs in December.
Oh, she was up there this whole time.
Well, I want to ask both of y'all a question before y'all even, since we're on the topic of Taylor. True or false? Taylor has to play well this week, or he's no longer the starting quarterback for the rest of the season.
False. I don't think he has to play well. Like, if it comes down to actual performance based with him, I don't think it has to play well. But I don't think, answer flat out false, but I don't think that he can play poorly or have a mediocre game and they lose. because he has one too many missed opportunities. Ron Rivera, actually, I was going to bring this part up, Dre, and I'll be quick with mine. AJ, you can go. Ron Rivera brought up this week. It was actually an interview. I don't think this was his presser. So I think it was the interview with JP Finley. His main thing is what AJ brought up and what we always talk about, missed opportunities in the red zone. Like you can't allow yourself or be forced to settle for 3. You have to get in the end zone. You have to capitalize. And while he's not necessarily pointing out quarterback in particular, like there are missed opportunities more from the quarterback's sake than it is from other people in situations that like Scott Turner dials up for your team. And that's kind of where AJ, if you remember, like during the game, I was like, bro, Scott is dialing that shit up. That first drive, bro, he was dialing that shit up. And Taylor Heineke could not get it done. So that's where I'm at, Dre. False. He doesn't have to play well in order to keep his job, but he cannot have a mediocre to poor game and a loss to stay in the next 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Taylor has to do well, or he will definitely be sitting on the bench next week.
So true for you, AJ.
Say that again?
I said, so that's true. The answer is true. He has to play well this week, or he loses his job after this week.
Yeah, I believe so, because like even Mual brought up, I seen the little clip of it earlier in the week about, instead of just getting points, it need to be touchdowns. Like there were some things open in the red zone. It's just Taylor didn't take them. He didn't even risk it. He didn't even try it because he knows the lack of his arm strength and also poor anticipation on his end. And even for Scott, maybe those are the opportunities where you use the RPO in those situations, because you know that your guy is scared to, try to push that ball in a tight window to the tight end, Jahad Dotson, or whatever the case. That's where you force him to keep the ball on the RPO. Like tell him, hey, on this second down, you're gonna keep the ball here and see what happens. But yeah, you got to start scoring touchdowns. You can't keep playing these games with field goals. And even Joey Sly is not the most reliable kicker. So even as a fan, whenever he kicks the ball, you don't know if that shit gonna be a miss or make. Like let's really be honest as fans. I can only imagine how the coaching staff feels. You'd rather just go in there and punch in 6 and call it a day.
So, short thing, just to add on, we don't have to have a whole dialogue about it, but yeah, just call me Mual first off. Coach Mual, coach is just a joke. It's all flag football stuff, man. But Mual, I do think that he waits a little too long, but I more so think that is what AJ pointed out is just the anticipation part. I think he knows what he's seeing, but he's just late, and that's probably that's the major thing. Like you can't afford to be late, and then ultimately when he's late, it leads to a sack or it leads to a bad decision for him. So, yes, he does use his legs to get out of the pocket sometimes. But to your point, to your specific question, he gets himself in trouble by not passing that football, man. What is Dre's answer? Oh, yeah. What is your answer, Dre? Yeah.
I'm with AJ on this one. I think he has to I guess in a sense, this is kind of loaded, but in a sense, he can't have the same game he had against the Giants this week. And reason I say that is I think if he in that offense, not just him, but if he in the offense that he's leading on that field, if he has the same game that he had the last game against the Giants, you may not be as fortunate this time to walk out with a tie. And in that case, you're losing a game. And I think that they go Carson Wentz after the game. I feel like that's what they want to do. I feel like, in all honesty, this is my opinion, I felt like if they would have lost that Giants game, they would have went to Carson after this bye. But because they didn't, you can't fix what's not broken. That's what I said last show. You can't fix what's not broken. It's not broke yet. You're still winning games. You're still riding the wave. You're still on momentum. But if they had lost that game, I think they would have went to Carson this week. So if that
shit broken, we just making do. It's like exactly. It's like you watching the TV with that blood shit on the screen. It's like you can see.
Jamal, don't highlight that, Michael.
You can see a quarter of the TV, but we'll make do with it.
No, Jamal highlighted that fucking Michael Underwood comment.
Yeah, but he didn't. He came out the cut with that heat. He came out the cut with that heat, bro. Man, hey, but look, hey, where our other guy at, man? He come in curb stomping everybody, bro. I forgot his name. Damn. But look though, here's another thing with Taylor, and it's crazy how it's always about Taylor, but I mean, quarterback is quarterback. It is what it is. Fellas, I said it before, and I still stand by this. This is despite the Giants game. Like, this stretch of football for Taylor Heineke is probably his biggest that he's ever had in his NFL career. Like, and when I say stretch, I understand that he had a playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's one game, and that's a game that you was probably expected to lose. So you're not necessarily thinking.
In that game.
Yeah, he was playing with house money. So do your thing, ball out. That was one thing. Then you take over last year, again, backup situation, backup quarterback. You weren't expected to do much, but ultimately you find yourself in a 7-9 situation in terms of your starting quarterback, essentially 7-10, I think, 7-9. I forgot how it went. Anyway, you didn't win that many games, losing record. But now you're in a position that wasn't like last year or the year before where you're clawing your way to get back into the playoffs. You have the 6th seed after the bye week with 4 games left, and you are the starting quarterback with no contract at the end of the season for you to stand on. Like, that is for this 4-game stretch is for you, obviously. This is for yourself to prove to Washington that you are a solid quarterback, whatever way they want to view it. That's one thing. But if they can win with you, like, you are out here to prove exactly what you can do for your offense. You're out here on a national spotlight right out of the bye week for NFL teams to view you and sit here and say, okay, I like this Taylor Heineke guy. I haven't seen him all season, but the game that he put on against the New York Giants at prime time, when they're the 6th seed in a crunch time, in a big situation, a game that they can't lose. You can't lose against the Giants. Like, all of this stuff for Taylor Heineke is right here in front of him if he wants to have a career as competing for a starting quarterback spot in the NFL somewhere, or maybe even being a bridge guy in Washington until they can find their guy. I don't know. But the point being, like, when you have this situation in front of you coming out of the bye week, Dre, you can't afford, if you're Taylor, to lose and have a poor game. But more importantly, like, this is as big as it gets for him. And I don't think he's ever really had like this pressure moment, understanding like the position that he was that he has helped put his team into. I'm not saying he's the reason, but he helped put his team into. And the position that you're in terms of like having that lead, having that spot where you're not clawing from behind, trying to make yourself into a playoff spot. You have that playoff spot. Can you hold it? Can you perform well? And are you the reason why your team, ends up losing the spot if they do lose?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge opportunity for him. I mean, you're the only game on at night. It's prime time, so everybody's going to be tuning in, watching. It's a major playoff implication game. At the end of the day, I can't necessarily say he can make himself money from this game, but he could definitely get some national recognition. We seen what just happened for Baker Mayfield the other week. People started talking about him again like he was coming out of college. But I mean, with Taylor, I'm a bit confused with him because it's like some moments he shows the reckless abandon, which means that he can play like he's in the backyard, on the playground or something. And then other moments he plays timid. So it's just a bit confusing. It's like we see a lot of these passes sometimes from Patrick Mahomes, like just take over the weekend last week where he's like scrambling as if he's going out of bounds and he just randomly lobs it up or tosses the ball to McKinnon and he scores that touchdown. Those are some of the things that Taylor Heineke, I felt like, was doing in his initial starts with Washington. And as the opportunity has grown and there's that window for him to be able to stamp himself as something, he just plays timid. And then you see games where he's throwing the ball with 4 people in coverage. And you're like, what the fuck? Just do that. Just if you're gonna play like that, bro, play like that the whole game. You feel me? Because at the end of the day, especially in the red zone, you have to give these guys fair opportunities to make plays on the ball there as well. Not just when you're down and out, not when it's 4th and 4, not when it's the last shot. It's also, taking these shots within the red zone. If you make a turnover, okay, cool. Like, we could possibly deal with that. But you're not even taking the shot. Guys aren't even getting the chance. And it's like, that's where probably Ron is getting frustrated and like, damn, Carson was not the greatest quarterback, but at least he'll take the chance in the red zone. If that shit don't work, it don't work. I mean, we've seen it happen with Carson. If I'm not mistaken, didn't he play the Tennessee game?
Yeah.
In the Tennessee game in the red zone, where they tried to run like a zigzag route to McKissick. We seen that not go well. But that wasn't going to change the fact that Carson wasn't going to take that chance. Taylor in that position would have never even took that shot at all. He probably would have just held on to the ball to the point where he got sacked or threw it away. So it's just a
Carson
little bit
shouldn't have thrown
alarming.
it. Just to be clear, that
Say
was
that
not that was not the route to throw.
Yeah,
That
it wasn't the route to throw, but he threw it. You feel me? Like I'd rather a guy throw it than not throw it at all. Like
I would rather him read that damn coverage. both of them,
yeah,
and that's my point. That's where I was getting. That's my counter. I was like, both of them struggle at doing it, and I think that's where like the ultimate will when it always like we go in a circle with this stuff. Like that's when I say that
they both they both doo-doo.
Yeah,
Mr. Hankies.
Yeah, the only thing you hope is that they're able to catch up. Carson is from a playbook standpoint and figure some things out. I didn't mean to cut you off though. If you want to finish your thoughts, go ahead. We're about to close out though. I gotta handle some business in a few minutes, but finish your thoughts.
I guess the last thing I was just gonna say is nothing I hate more than talk about shit, and that's Heineke or shit. So, that's all I gotta say on that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start it off with the prediction in the MVP. First and foremost, they need Benjamin St. Juice. But matter of fact, where's the injury report at? They need Benjamin St. Juice back. I think that if they have Benjamin St. Juice back, this is a game where you can severely hamper that Giants offense. And force Daniel Jones or really key in on Daniel Jones. I think is probably the safest way to say it. And that's really it defensively. Like, I think everything else is fine. You got to monitor the defensive line. James Smith-Williams, Montez Sweat with the concussion. You got to monitor that situation. Who knows what happens come game day? But end of the day, point being, what is my prediction? I think that this is a game that Washington wins. But I won't be surprised if the Giants, I think they'll be able to keep this close, and I think that they'll have some chances to win yet again. But I think that this is a game that Washington wins. I would say 21-17. So with the 4.5, with the 4.5.
No, I'm surprised you picked them to have over 20, Mual.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, I know. 21-17. Giants cover. Washington breaks the 20-point barrier. For however many for the X amount of time in 17 weeks or whatever. 14 weeks. So, 21-17, Washington MVP. I'm going to say it goes to a defensive player, and I'll give it to, I think, Cam Curl.
All right. I'm going. First off, I want to say this is going to be the first. This will be the biggest Giants-Washington game since the early 90s.
Oh, early 90s. Okay.
Yes, and the reason why I say this, I mean, Washington and New York has had big games, in recent years, but more so it's been one-sided. Like, it was big to one team, but it wasn't big to the other. Now this game is big to both teams. I mean, both teams are playing for something. Both teams are actually, same record. You're in the playoffs, or at least right now you're controlling your own destiny. In a sense. So this is a big Washington and New York game, probably the biggest in the last 30 years. But I think Washington comes on top, and I'm with Jamal. I'm going Washington scoring over 20 points in this game. I think Washington wins 23-17. I think Joey Slye gets 3 field goals in this game. My MVP of this game is Brian Robinson. I think he scores 2 touchdowns this week against the Giants, and Washington wins 23-17.
We AJ.
Yeah, man. I think it's definitely the biggest game in Commander history.
Yeah, no bullshit.
But I mean, it'll be a very intriguing game. I think the other component that I was going to mention in my list of top 3 things is turnovers. I feel like whoever creates the most turnovers will end up winning the game. Um, of course, Washington needs to put more touchdowns on the board. I expect it to be a close game. Um, I don't really know if I have a prediction off head, but I probably would like to say at this point, maybe 27.
27. Okay.
27 to I'll say 27 to 16. Um, that's what I'm predicting the score to be.
Who wins?
Washington.
Washington.
I think
Okay.
Washington wins. I think they end up getting more involved in the passing game and being able to play off of that. I think they come out trying to mix in the pass and different things with Curtis Samuel to deviate from what they did week 13, and that should open up the game and maybe the way that Martindale kind of like schematically plays them as far as like all out blitzes and stuff. I think that Washington plays more discipline against Daniel Jones and forces him to throw the ball a bit more and making plays in the passing game. I feel like Ben will be playing Sunday. Um, I think that is a major difference for them as far as having their number one corner, I guess you could say, within the scheme going against, the Slaytons and the Hodgsons that I mentioned earlier. I think that changes a lot of things when you don't have Christian Holmes out there getting toasted. Uh, so, I think they pull out the win. I think it'd be a good win. And I'm looking forward to talking to everybody else about the game Sunday night after. Hopefully it's a dub.
I'm a little scared. AJ picked us. AJ never picks us, Mo. I'm a little scared, man.
Yeah, I think he's seen the light. I think you know what's on the horizon, man. Playoffs around the corner.
I'm Ray Charles. I'm Ray Charles out here.
Nah, you can try that if you want to. It's like no. All right, so we out of here. I gotta handle business. Y'all boys be safe. Take it easy. We'll chop it up about if we're gonna do it, if we're gonna commit to the graveyard shift or not Sunday night. We'll talk about that. All right, hey, there you go.
Y'all boys gonna be wide awake, especially if they win.
I'm gonna be drinking.
Exactly. So we gonna get a Liddy Dre and a Liddy Mual.
And I don't want a Liddy Mual.
I don't know. I can't hold. Nah, AJ gonna have to host, bro. Fuck you talking about? I'm gonna start the show. I'm gonna start it up. I'm like, AJ, you got it from here, player.
I'm gonna get on my best DJ Envy Breakfast Club vibes. Today we got a special guest, Mo.
We got a special guest in the building. All right, hey, that's it for us, man. We out of here. Enjoy the game tonight, dog. Hey, I got that under tonight. I shouldn't have said that because I know Dre probably got some action, but
no, I got a parlay. I got the under too. I got the under on the parlay.
My man, Niners and Seattle bet. So we on the same side. I feel better now. Al too. I saw your. Hey, good luck to your parlay tonight. But yeah, we out of here. Washington Commanders morning show tomorrow morning. The fellas will be back Sunday night for the game. Y'all boys be easy. Take it easy. Enjoy your weekend. All that good stuff.